Adam Bierman back again with Breezin with Bierman. I have to first applaud Lauren Lepre, as I said before, has brought in great local legends, high Facebook ratings, high ratings of all type. Today we have to also go back to our roots though, because we are still a local station, and we have a new, I think, talent, vibrant, quiet, charisma politician, Ayesha Hamilton. And I'll just go over a little bit of Ayesha's impressive resume. I don't see how you have time to sleep, but you've been a councilwoman, currently councilwoman in West Windsor. You won Governor Murphy's transition team, labor workforce development. You're a licensed attorney in private practice. You're just too accomplished. And I feel smaller. And stuff. And you might have been running for assembly in the 15th district, but I don't know. One thing I want to say, we have a story here, though, a human interest story, though. You're an immigrant. Can you give us some background?
Absolutely. I was born and raised in India, in Bombay, and I moved to the United States to go to college in Cleveland, Ohio.
Where did you go to? Case Western?
Case Western, that's right. Yeah, it's a great school. Yeah. So I stayed at Case Western for undergrad and then also went to law school at Case. And was very fortunate to meet my husband actually the first week of my undergrad first year.
Oh my God, he swept you off his feet. Were you an item
from
day one? Oh,
he was great, yes. Well, we started dating in November. We were friends first. And so ended up getting married the week after I graduated from law school.
Practical.
Which I will tell you is a crazy time to get married when you're judging or working through your final year's exams and then preparing to study for the bar exam.
And think about your future job, where to go, where we're going to live. His family's from Ohio, right?
His family is a long time Ohio family.
Hamilton County. No, I don't know if it's the same family. But
no, they're in southern Ohio in the Dayton area. Mm-hmm. So we go back there about once a year.
Trump country, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Interesting family reunions. But so what were you thinking though? Did you plan to stay in the U.S. or you had no ideas where you're heading?
I don't think I thought about it. Mm-hmm. I think that I probably had a pretty good idea that I was going to stay in the U.S. when I went to law school here, because the legal training is different than what would be required to practice in India. But by then, my husband and I had been dating for 4 years. I felt we both felt fairly committed. And in
careers
fact,
were starting now.
Careers were starting, and I think we were comfortable with that decision. And so we have 2 children. My son Kieran is 14. My daughter Ava is 11. And we actually lived in Pennsylvania for a while, and then moved back to New Jersey. Mostly picked West Windsor because of the schools, like everybody does. We have an excellent school system, and so we're very happy here.
Well, you jumped too fast because I want to get back. Now, again, a lot of, you're American, but you're also Indian, and we do have, I have to admit, maybe a provincial view. What about your parents? Did they have a problem with you marrying a Caucasian, a non-Indian? Is there a class system issue arising?
Not at all. In
Really?
fact, my mother spent a few of her years growing up in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
My grandfather was part of the UN economic delegation from India, so he was in D.C. for a few years, in New York for a few years. So they were quite comfortable with the idea of me coming abroad for college.
And not even coming back, really.
And not coming back. Now, the interesting twist that everybody is shocked they let me do this is I'm an only child. And so the question they got constantly was, "You're going to let her go?"
Right, exactly.
And so they're very young. They're young parents, just in their mid-60s. So they travel a fair amount, and so we meet them in Europe, so they don't have to come all the way here. Mm-hmm. And once a year they will come to the United States, so my kids are growing up knowing them as well, and having a good relationship with them.
Right, so both sides of the family, the influence and the closeness is there.
And that's important to us.
Right, and at the same time, I guess in your DNA is an intellect, public service, and an internationalism, a broad view of the world and politics and everything.
Right. I think that helps. I mean, growing up, so my mother's father was also the chairman of the Indian Federal Reserve Bank.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And
it's like
so,
Ben Bernanke type.
And so he, and I think it's very cool, actually got to sign currency for 1 year.
Yeah, that's,
exactly.
Look,
his signature's on the bill. It's a impressive thing, but growing up, I didn't have that sense of who he was. Right.
He was just.
But he was just my grandpa. But we would have these great conversations about history and law and politics.
Nauru, England, the whole thing.
Absolutely.
World War II. He was there. He's in the middle of all of it.
He lived
Gandhi.
through all of it. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's serious history.
So he had a lot to share. My father's father as well was a meteorologist, and he and I would have these great weekends where he would pick me up and take me off to my grandparents' house, and we would just have these great conversations about politics and history.
And you're the only child, too.
I mean, I was the only grandchild.
By many parents, in a way.
Yes.
But also nurtured, educated.
Absolutely. And I love that none of my grandparents nor my parents have ever talked down to me. So it's always been this expectation of, you are old enough to understand the issues, we're going to talk to you about the issues, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant, doesn't matter. And that was very much what my husband and I do with our kids. So
kind of like little adults with common sense thrown in.
Exactly. But so we don't sugarcoat politics. We don't sugarcoat the issues happening at the national level.
And they can understand it and also come to their own conclusions and everything.
Absolutely. So in fact, I drive, both my kids are competitive swimmers and they swim for Petty. So as you might imagine, we spend a lot of time at the pool and driving to and from the pool. And when I pick up my daughter and her little 11-year-old friend, the first thing he gets in the car and he says, law question. And so we talk policy. We talk about,
That's
gun
good
control.
practice for you, too, because you can distill information and make it accessible to everyone.
Absolutely.
Which is hard to do sometimes.
Absolutely.
I try to explain what I do on this show, and I confuse people, and I don't think it's as complicated as law or zoning in West Windsor or something.
All right. Well, try explaining it to an 11-year-old, and you really break it down to the bits and pieces. And I will say to this little guy that he helps me a lot, and my daughter helps me a lot, because when you break it down to the simplest bare bones pieces, you're really forced to look at all of the issues.
Exactly. You have to re-examine it. It's kind of like therapy.
It is.
But your kids have to be special, because I had to be smacked occasionally. I was running around and stuff. So you're the private law practice. Your husband, what does he do?
He's a chemical engineer, so he works for Teva Pharmaceuticals.
So you moved because of him. I mean, what was his progression to come to West Windsor, Central New Jersey?
So we were after we were married, we lived in Princeton. Actually, we lived above.
I'll talk to you now. You're not from West Windsor. Above where?
We lived above PJ's Pancake House on Nassau Street.
People thought that was a house of prostitution when I was a kid. Well,
it is not now. Okay. It wasn't when I was there.
No, there was a woman who did massages, Swedish woman. It was a long story. So there was no ghost. You didn't find anything funny. Okay, but
no, I didn't. No, in fact, I loved that apartment.
That's like Manhattan to me. You could walk
every place. It was so central.
Yeah, you didn't have kids then, I guess.
We did not have kids, so.
That was your little nest.
I loved it. And in fact, it was right after the fire at PJ's. So the apartment had completely been redone. It was beautiful.
And modern.
Modern.
You should have stayed.
Oh.
Put the kids in a closet. It's a great location.
Right.
And stuff.
Well, in fact, when we moved back to the area, I said to my husband, I'm like, well, we could go back to that apartment. And he said, even if it was available, where would we put the kids and all of our stuff that we have acquired now?
That's true,
so, too. I'm okay with getting rid of the stuff, but I'm going to keep the kids.
Yeah, that's the downside of bourgeoisie living, though. You need more space and everything.
Right, exactly.
So you come to West Windsor, and you do all these things, but why politics? Some people told me, some Indians have told me, even though now they're starting to get into politics in America, because they're a force now. I mean, but they said in India, politicians are dirty. It's really a low. I mean, maybe but it's seen as really corrupt. I mean, is that?
I think that is generally, I will call it a misconception that we do as Indians have about politics. Is that you've got to be on the take and you've got to be.
It's very black and white. Yeah,
right.
You're dirty.
You're just dirty.
You're a nasty person.
So I actually did not ever envision being involved in politics. I was asked to run for council because the council candidate that they had on the ticket was unwell and couldn't run. And actually, I had to be asked 3 times before I said yes.
Yeah, you have a law practice, kids.
Well, and I thought, why would I do that? What is the point of that? I have to say it has been the best experience of my life. I have enjoyed the public service aspect of it. I have no patience for the politics aspect of it, which may mean that my time in politics is short-lived. Who knows? But I truly am engaged by the public service aspect of it. And let me tell you what that means. To me, I have spent my last 20 years in my law practice as an employment lawyer, which means representing women and minorities, generally people of a certain age, as they're getting pushed out of their jobs. And I have
wrongly or unfairly?
Wrongful termination cases. And
so it's people's livelihoods. It's people's essential human rights.
Exactly. And that has been, as I started my own practice, I really wanted to focus on, I made a specific choice to focus on that area because I felt that we needed to have people speaking for those who could not otherwise speak for themselves.
And fundamentally help their lives.
Exactly, and make a difference.
Right.
But I sensed just a great amount of frustration in I'm doing this one case at a time, I'm not making any difference. Right. And it's so when I got to sort of sit up on the dais at the council meetings and actually argue a point and be able to advocate for something and to be able to move the ball forward.
And pass a law that could help someone keep a job longer, get more unemployment or something.
Exactly.
Affect more people. Right.
And so we don't get to address those issues at council, at the local level. But I had some sense of satisfaction of we were approving projects that were good for the greater good. That
Such
made
as what,
sense.
Like affordable housing in the city center, high density.
So talking about sort of projects that might enhance our town better, right? Talking about how we can examine, so I actually spent a fair amount of time last year looking into commercial tax ratables to sort of find out how are we taxing our entities? Are we always talk about how we have too much residential, the burden of the tax is too far on the residential, not enough on the commercial. Right. And research that I did revealed that we are actually not taxing our commercial entities appropriately. We're assessing them too low, which means they're not paying their fair share of tax.
That's the amazing thing. So this fundamental problem was happening. And why does it happen though? People just are too busy? Or
I think it was actually a statewide policy over the last 8 years of, well, we need to take care of our businesses and encourage business investment, encourage businesses coming to New Jersey and staying in New Jersey. So we're going to give them tax subsidies. And that is what we saw in West Windsor, but we've seen it as an issue around the state
But
as
did
well.
it even out? Did it bring enough people? Was it worth all these subsidies? Did it
I'm
bring
not
enough
entirely sure, and as a residential taxpayer, I will tell you,
it could even
I
up
don't
better.
love the subsidy.
Right.
Right?
So it could even up. So people might stay and they could pay more.
Exactly. And our taxes in West Windsor are high. Your taxes in Princeton are high. We are, to be perfectly honest, these two towns are carrying the rest of the county. Right. We pay a significant amount of tax. We have high property values. We hold our property values. They maintain. We have great schools.
Right.
So all of these similarities between West Windsor and Princeton, I think, make us the jewels of Mercer County. And I'm very proud of our town for that. I think we really have an incredible group of people, an incredible township, a great administration. We have really good people.
Okay, give me the platitude. But you're a smart woman. So and again, you can't. I'm not an all or nothing person. I know you can't change that in one day, and there's a reason why other areas like Trenton or whatever can't give as much. But so one small thing to alleviate a little bit would be what, to tax these businesses more, commercial entities?
I don't even want to tax them more. I want to tax them at the appropriate rates.
Okay, and get back to
so
that.
I'll give you the example of Market Fair. Is in their own SEC filings they're claiming their fair market value to be $104 million. We assess them at $50 million. So they're being taxed on $50 million instead of 104.
That's empirical evidence, and it could be seen by a third party. Just
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. And there's other examples like
And
that.
they'll say that we need, but you don't want us to leave. They'll probably try to say you don't want us
Right.
to leave, right, or something like that.
Right. And so that's, that's something that we don't need to go further into now.
Right.
But there are things like that that we can do. And no question, West Windsor should have more commercial ratables. And there should be the right kind of commercial ratables.
Smart, right.
Smart growth, right?
Right.
That's what we need. One of the issues that people talk about in West Windsor all the time is wanting a great walkable downtown. Well, they want Princeton, right? And
Right.
who
Now
doesn't?
that's what it is. Right.
Right.
Now, yeah,
But you need to make sure that you grow in the right way. You need to make sure that our roads and parking and infrastructure can support that type of growth, right? So I do sometimes have trouble finding parking in Princeton, especially if you have a university event like a regatta or something going on. We just don't come into Princeton.
Right.
But
you're right that you have to do it right. If you don't do it right and it's congested, it's not attractive, it's not clean,
Right.
stores aren't what people need or want, and
Exactly.
it's not accessible, people wouldn't go anyway. So then
Exactly.
Right. So
And
you
you
have to
don't-
manage the future.
Exactly, and you have to have a vision for it.
Right.
And I think that the people in our administration have years and years of experience in planning, in community development, and I have a lot of respect for them. And any time that I have gone and asked a question, I feel as though I have gotten a straight answer.
Oh, really? So people do, yeah, right.
They're communicative, and they're really, I wasn't giving you platitudes.
Okay.
It's really a good team there.
Yeah, because I think we have the same, you don't have to agree with everything, and I'm not here to kiss Mayor Lampert's ass, nor is she asking me. But no, they do a pretty good job, and don't forget, they're not doing it for the money.
That's
they're not
right.
angling, that I know of, to become, secretary of this or
No.
something and stuff.
And I will tell you, I mean, I've had an opportunity to sit with Mayor Lampert. She is an impressive woman, and she is not doing it for the money.
No.
But she does have a vision, and she does have the intelligence in a very quiet way of making sure that she is doing the best for this town, and I truly believe that
Oh, yeah.
she is.
And I've gotten that too, now that I've looked more into it too. Not that people always like to make comments and sound important, but then do they ever actually look into the weeds? When I've talked to her and seen what, she learns what's going on.
That's
She
right.
has a vision. She sees how things are interconnected, and at the same time, she knows there's politics too. There's balancing, should I say, interests, and you're not going to please everybody.
Right.
And stuff, you tear down a house and you put a bigger one in. It might help good for the tax base. It might drive
Right.
someone's property value up. But you got to balance all those things.
Right. And I will
yeah.
say, though, in Mercer County, we do have actually more than other counties, more women in leadership roles. So if you think of Mayor Lampert, you think of Mayor Janice Marinoff from East Windsor.
East Windsor, right?
Very
In Hamilton, we had
Mayor Yady,
right.
very, very impressive women, very strong women, intelligent women. There are some very basic characteristics that go with these women in leadership that is truly to be respected.
So where do you head now, though, with politics? You like issues. You seem to have a passion. You want to help. You were thinking of running for assembly. You said right now you don't know what that is. That's in flux. What are the immediate needs for Mercer County or West Windsor, and where do you sit with that?
I will say that Mercer County, I think West Windsor as well, and certainly in the 15th Legislative District, I think you need more people who are focused on policy and not politics. And I would like to see more of that. Obviously, I think that I'm someone who is focused more on policy because I am. I enjoy the policy discussions. I think if you do not get into the weeds on policy discussions, then you are not truly being able to make a difference.
Right.
And so what that takes is a ridiculous amount of research, a huge amount of listening. If you do not listen enough, you're not going to know what people need and want.
Right.
And
So
one
you're saying
of the
really listen.
Really listen. One of the things I truly enjoyed about this last sort of very brief run for the assembly.
There was to fill this seat vacated by Liz Murillo.
That's right. So she was appointed to be our state treasurer, which is very impressive.
Right.
And so that left a vacancy in the district that needed to be filled by convention of the 15th Legislative District Committee people.
Right.
And it had to be done in 30 days. So we literally had about 2 weeks of campaigning. And what that campaigning process was going to the various towns in the 15th Legislative District, and you do your stump speech.
You talk about your vision, what your qualifications.
Exactly. And then you stay and you answer questions. And I loved the question part, right? I don't like to hear myself talk. I want to hear what's important to you,
Right.
and I want to then be able to answer your questions.
And show that I can do it.
That's
that
right.
I actually know what
Right.
I'm talking about.
And one of
give
the
an
people
example of the question.
came back to me afterwards, after one of the township meetings, and said the thing they appreciated most about me was that I was not afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find it for you.
Right, right.
And I will look into that. And he said that whereas some of the other candidates, you could tell they didn't know the answer, but went to a canned response, he said, I appreciated your honesty. And I think there is no shame in saying, listen, I don't know the answer to that, but here's how I would approach it.
Right.
Here's what my process of analysis would be. And if I found X or if I found Y, is where, my decision making would take place.
And even more important, I think you'd be responsive too. You'd actually get back to them in a couple.
Absolutely. So in fact, I make a point of making sure that people have my phone number, that people have my business card. I do get emails and text messages from people asking questions.
You got one from me.
That's right. And I do always make sure that I get back to people. And I think people, especially in West Windsor, people appreciate that. So I get emails, what's going on so-and-so road? And I'll say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. And I do get back to them.
Do you enjoy that part? It's kind of almost like being an investigator, detective.
I love it.
You have your connections, you know where to go, you can look, you figure things, and
right.
Then, right.
And I think what's important is for the residents, whether you elected me or not, to know that you can reach out to me and that I have the access to find the answer for you.
And expertise too.
Exactly. So one of the things I do as a councilwoman, and not sort of in my official role as council, but I send out a newsletter by email to anyone who wants to sign up for it. And I give an update of if there was a particularly contentious issue. I always explain how I vote. I think you are absolutely entitled to know how I voted for something and why I voted in a particular way. And I think that's your duty as being a resident to ask those questions. And it is my responsibility as an elected official to always be able to answer them.
Do you find that being authentic and transparent, people even don't agree with you still like you and want to be
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is what I would want from my elected official.
You really don't have to fudge. If you actually are frank with people and do your job, you find that people will actually maybe even support you, even if they don't agree with you on everything.
Exactly. And I think that's actually all anybody ever wants is an honest answer.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, I think you want an honest, well-reasoned answer. Just like if you ever said to your kid, just because, it's not going to fly.
It is true. It does not,
never works.
I would love it if you would do this because.
Exactly.
Your daddy's busy, can you clean this?
Explain.
Yeah, right. And then also kind of make you feel important.
Right. But I also feel even as an enhanced responsibility because I was given this position of trust. I was placed in by an election, right? I take that really seriously.
No, but you do have a lot of serious policies that affect people, from housing and also on money.
That's
on
right.
money. That's
right.
You really can't half the budget that goes through the schools anyway. It's hard to control.
Right. We only get 15% of our budget.
I think in Princeton it's 20%.
Yeah.
So if people go, why don't we cut 2%? 2% of 20 that could be potholes this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I will tell you, we are going through our budgeting process now. I have in the past 2 years that I have gone through a budgeting process, municipalities are working very close to the wire on what they have. There isn't waste. There isn't graft and corruption like you might see elsewhere.
Yeah, I hear that nonsense too. Exactly. It's limited resources. It's actually, and there's a lot of things to do. There's capital projects all the time.
Right.
There's debt you have to service. I don't know if West Windsor has debt, but you have debt too.
Sure, and just even filling the potholes after the winter, right?
Yeah.
Even snow removal. I mean, trash. We have brush pickup. We covered that as a township.
And
we cover the cost of trash removal.
And then run over, sewage, all that too you have to
Right.
grapple with, and then more growth and everything.
Right.
And everything.
And one of the things we see in our township that is, is frustrating is we have volunteer fire departments. So 2 fire companies with probably over 100 fire volunteers, right?
That
These
really-
are residents who are, for nothing, putting their lives on the line to save me and my cat, and
And that's important too, because that would cost a whole lot
yeah.
to the budget if you can't keep that
Exactly.
volunteer.
So if you think about, let's quantify that. If we had to charge a fire district tax, each homeowner or each home would pay an additional $800 a year.
That could break some people on fixed incomes.
Absolutely, and that's a huge increase in tax.
Yeah.
So why not send your fire department a $20 donation?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
You have to
that
explain
simple.
and educate, then people will start self-advocating when
That's
they really
right.
know it.
That's right.
Yeah, people like to knock on, sometimes, and I don't agree everything Princeton University does, but they help, they let their own employees go and join the fire department and also leave work where they're needed.
That's
I mean,
great.
it's
I
a
didn't know
huge,
that.
it's a huge savings.
Yeah.
We only have about 3 minutes left. I'll say I discovered her for Princeton TV, but quiet charisma, very intelligent, quite articulate and kind. And you seem like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. There's no guile, there's no narcissism. I mean, if I was elected to anything, I'd be a potentate. But then, but I don't know. But my point is, yes, you're kind, sincere, and quite articulate. Where can people get your newsletter online? How can they reach you? And hopefully-
If people just email me, I think the email address might be on the screen. I'm happy to add you to the newsletter. If you can reach out to me anytime. My cell phone number is 215-738-0222.
You're not going on dates, though.
No, I'm not going on dates.
Make sure.
No. I will say, though, that it was funny. I got some feedback about having a 215 area code cell phone
That's
number.
Philly.
It's Philly. Well, we used to live in Pennsylvania, and everybody I know, including kids and such, have that cell phone number. So please don't be offended that I don't have a 609 area code number. That's just my cell phone.
Mm-hmm. I have one question in the final 2 minutes. I only got one from West Windsor. Usually we get questions from the street in Princeton. I don't even know what you can grapple with this one. My one question is, a lot of the old condos that have been built in West Windsor are falling apart. How is the council involved in that? I don't know. That's what they say.
Well, all of the old condos are privately owned, right? So it's owned by a developer or a management company, a private commercial landowner. So we in West Windsor may not necessarily, as a township, be able to compel certain changes.
It's up to them. Yeah, okay. Only. Okay.
However, we do have some affordable housing units that are in an all-affordable development. And we require, and the state of New Jersey requires, that they be maintained at a specific standard. So if those units are dropping below certain standards, West Windsor Township has taken a proactive step to make sure that they are meeting code, meeting standards.
'Cause I was around when they were built, and now they're over 35 years old. So that's housing
Yes.
stock that it might not be being kept up, or maybe it is. I'm not. I don't. But they're old.
And there's always disputes with landlords and trying, where it is tenant versus private landowner. The township really doesn't have
you have to respect
anything.
the private property in the
That's
process,
right.
right?
And we have a code enforcement responsibility, but we don't necessarily. Anything more than that would really be up to the landlord and the tenant, and be governed by the lease.
Well, Ayesha Hamilton, I hope you will come back. Maybe
Thank you.
run for. I don't know what you're going to be running for. You don't know either right now.
I don't know
You're in
either.
flux. You're
Yeah.
in flux. It's a philosophical, theological quagmire you might be in right now.
That's right.
But I'm sure you'll be someplace, and you'll come back on the show.
I
And
definitely will.
maybe
Thank
we
you.
can have coffee too this weekend.
Absolutely.
Or something. Well,
thank you very much. I appreciate
Ayesha
it.
Hamilton, West Windsor Councilwoman. We'll be right back.